Hey y'all, this episode involves discussions about murder, and it does mention murder and violence against children. This episode also involves foul language that some listeners may find offensive and may not be suitable for our younger audience. Listener discretion is advised. Hey y'all, I'm Mary.
I'm Christina.
And this is
TCDY.
Let's go!
Welcome back.
It feels so good to be back.
Yeah, it does. Sorry we've been gone a little while. We had a lot going on.
Christina's oldest son, my oldest nephew, he graduated high school.
Yes.
And we are very proud of him.
Yeah.
So
we weren't sure it was going to happen, but it did.
Yeah. So that was bittersweet. Also, poor Christina had to get her mouth drilled out. So that was another reason why we haven't been able to record.
Yeah. I had a wisdom tooth extracted. And let me tell you, listeners, if you are under the age of 30, go get your goddamn wisdom teeth taken out now. Call your dentist first thing tomorrow, oral surgeon or whatever, and get them bitches gone. Because the closer you get to 40, the worse it is. It did not go as planned, and I am still recovering from it. I can't feel half my face.
You start singing that song to your dentist. I can't feel my face when I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I don't
pretty
love
much.
it.
It feels like, I've got wicked frostbite on the left side of my face. But pain's getting better. I can talk now. I can use this side of my face. I just can't feel it. So, you could, put a fucking blowtorch up to it and I wouldn't know. But anyway, enough about my problems. One thing that we want to mention is that this week, we weren't planning on it happening so soon. We were actually hoping that with this episode that we would reach this milestone, but it happened quicker than we expected.
Yes.
So this week, we reached 1,000 downloads for the podcast. Yeah. And that's for its entirety. The whole 6 months we've been doing this.
Yeah.
But it's a big thing for us. We realize that that's what Crime Junkie gets in an hour. But it's a big deal to us.
Less.
So, now we're working on the next goal. But we have you guys to thank for that. And we are so grateful.
We are very appreciative to everybody that's reached out on social media to let us know that they enjoy our show. I think we've only had one person tell us that we were annoying, but I'm pretty sure there's more out there.
Yeah.
But it's all right. It comes with it.
Right.
We just kind of we're here to
just
tell you a
us.
good story, we're really just us.
We are who we are, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to understand, we're sisters, okay? We've talked over each other our whole life, and it's not gonna change.
Yeah.
It's just not. We're just gonna keep being who we are, and if you don't like it, it's okay. We actually have people in our circle that don't even listen to us. Yeah, they love us in real life, but they just don't listen to our podcast, and that's okay.
So, like we said from the beginning, if it's not your jam, it's cool.
It's all right. We won't take it personally.
Anyway.
But to the people that do like us, thank you. And
yes, thank you.
We're not going to go real big into it right now because we haven't gotten it yet, but we'll be getting a little bit of merchandise soon.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, so we'll be talking more about that hopefully in the next couple episodes. And we'll tell you how you can do that, how you can get those type of things, or, we might just send it to you.
Anywho, moving on, Mary is covering this week. So what are we talking about today?
So this week, we are going to be discussing the Lester Street murders in Memphis that happened in 2008.
Okay.
Now, some people may be familiar with this case only because it was featured on an episode, one of the earlier episodes of The First 48, which, I don't know, everybody loves The First 48.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen a few episodes. I'm not that big into it, but
I used to love it. I'm not into it really that much anymore, but I remember when I was in college, I watched a lot of it. Now, I went to school for police shit, so that's why I pretty much watched
yeah,
it.
it's a lot of police shit.
Yeah, that's
which
all
I
it
mean,
is.
don't
It's
get me
homicide
wrong, that's cool.
investigation.
I think I'm just more about like a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, no, it's a cool show.
So, yeah, so since this case is straight out of Memphis, a lot of people know Memphis as being the home of Elvis Presley with Graceland, also the home of B.B. King. Barbecue. We have a B.B. King's here too, don't we? Still? I don't know. I know we had one. But before I get into this, I'm going to try this thing where I talk about a little bit of the historical things behind a city. I don't know why. It's just kind of interesting to me. Memphis is a historical city and to this day continues to grow. I've visited Memphis a few times on my own account. I've always felt like the city was beautiful in its own little kind of unique way. It always seems to be really rainy though.
I think it's just you.
Yeah,
I
me.
think it's just when you
brought
enter.
that shit there.
It's just when you enter, storm clouds come with you.
So, Memphis, Tennessee is a fairly large city that runs along the Mississippi River in the southwest Shelby County. With Memphis' budding population of around 651,000 residents, and that was recorded in 2019. It was named the second largest city in Tennessee, with Nashville being number one.
Really? I always thought that Memphis was bigger than
Memphis
Nashville.
was bigger than Nashville,
so
up
Nashville's
until
finally
recently.
beat it out?
Right.
Okay.
So, we for a long time we were behind Memphis,
Right.
and now of course, how Nashville has grown like crazy,
Right.
But
Transplants.
yeah. So Nashville's number one. Memphis is the anchor of West Tennessee and the greater Mid-South region, including portions of neighboring Mississippi, Arkansas, and the Missouri Boot Hill. According to the website Britannica. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Like Encyclopedia Britannica?
Maybe. I don't know. It's a website. The first European explorer to visit Memphis was a Spanish conquistador, and his name was Hernando de Soto. And this actually happened in 1541. This was long before it was Memphis, but that is the first recorded person to find Memphis. Now, the French and Spanish forts briefly existed on these sites, but in 1797, the United States built Fort Adams there. Have you ever heard of Fort Adams? It's a...
I have not, but
so
does it still exist?
I believe there's a historical error.
Okay,
there.
so it's not like an operating military base. Okay, got it.
Memphis was officially founded in 1819 on the land that had previously been inhabited by the Chickasaw Indians. Andrew Jackson, whom would later be our 7th president, was one of the founders that did find Memphis. Memphis grew fast with the expansion of cotton growing in the South due to its transportation facilities by river and by the railroads.
Yeah, it's right on the Mississippi River.
Yeah, so that's how a lot they were able to build the city up, was with the cotton and the way that they transported everything out.
But I think the soil there is really good for... that with the
that's what they said on there Delta. Too. Yeah. But unfortunately in the 1870s, the yellow fever pandemic had permanently damaged the city's population.
I think I have that in my mouth right now.
The yellow fever.
I think that's what happened to me.
It killed more than 5,000 of the residents there. And that's actually a lot for back then, though. I mean, 5,000 in today's time maybe not be like a ton, but it's a lot for back then.
It's not looking good for me.
Yeah. Get away from me.
I got something going on.
Can you still not feel like, are you still numb?
I'm still numb.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I was numb. The city went bankrupt, declining in population, and in 1879 surrendered its charter. However, Memphis was granted a new city charter in 1893 after drastic sanitary reforms. Cotton trading and the growth of the market in hardwood and contributing to its economic recovery. Being that Memphis is the home of Tennessee's largest Black American population, it played a prominent role in the American Civil Rights Movement in the 1960s. On April 4th, 1968, the city was affected by the assassination of the amazing civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was visiting the city to support the sanitation workers' strike. I guess there was some kind of strike going on down there, and he came down there. He was killed by a sniper's bullet while standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, which became the National Civil Rights Museum in 1991. Memphis is the home of a lot of culture. It's also the birthplace of the blues. And it's also the home of the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, which, Graceland, I've never been there, always wanted to go.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to visit anybody's house unless it's haunted.
They said that Graceland is haunted.
Oh, did they say it's haunted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Elvis wasn't actually born in Memphis. He was born in Mississippi, but he did make his home there. So, and I think you can go to Graceland.
You can to visit, like, his old house. Did he die in Graceland?
Yeah. Yeah, he died in the bathroom, but I don't think you're allowed to go in the bathroom.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
I mean, I wonder if you could go into the bathroom. Maybe we can go and sneak off to the bathroom.
The bathroom he died in?
Yeah. We
should go one time. It's not like we have to, like, travel cross country. It's only, like, 3 hours from us.
Yeah.
So maybe one day we will make it there. This case starts by a young lady by the name of Erica Smith making a 911 call to Memphis police in the early evening hours of March 3rd, 2008. Now, the reason why Miss Smith was calling is because she was concerned of the welfare of her 2-year-old son and the 2-year-old's father, Cecil Dotson Sr., because she had been trying to reach Cecil since early morning hours of the day before, March 2nd. Before the call, Miss Smith had also drove by Cecil's Leicester Street home that he shared with his 27-year-old fiancée, Marissa Williams, and their 4 children. Now, their 4 children range from the age at this time, from the age of 9 years old to 2 months old. Okay. So that's how many children they had. Miss Smith even stated on this call that she had made to the police that she parked in the driveway and laid on the horn and waited several minutes for a response, but she didn't get one. She also told police that she could see that the front door was open, but the storm door was closed, and she wasn't seeing any movement in the house, and she thought that was kind of weird. But at that moment, she didn't report it because apparently Cecil had done this before. Like, she had arranged to pick the child up, and he had, like, went somewhere, and, he just wasn't home.
Okay.
So she really didn't think anything of it. I think she had just kind of got, like, irritated with him, but he wasn't answering her phone calls.
So she didn't try to knock on the door when she went?
Didn't, and okay. I think that has a lot to do with maybe, him. He's been with Marissa for so many years, and maybe they broke up for a small amount of time, and he got with her, and maybe there was some animosity between them. So I'm thinking that maybe that's why. Because if it was me and he had my kid, I'd be on there knocking on the door.
Right. But then again, you don't know if there was like a legal reason or
true, because I couldn't find anything about that, and I tried to find stuff about that, but I couldn't find anything on it. So she waited until the early morning hours of March 3rd when she discovered Cecil had not reported to work at his maintenance job in a local apartment complex. Miss Smith then called Cecil's oldest brother, William Waddell, telling him of her concerns and worries. Mr. Waddell said he hadn't seen Cecil since March 1st, which was a Saturday. And he told Miss Smith to go ahead and just call the police because that was bizarre. So she did. Police told her to stand by, they'd be out. So the police arrive at 722 Leicester Street, and they walk through the front door, and it was Officer Randall Davis that did the initial first walkthrough. Okay. And he said before he even opened the house, he could already smell the blood and the death.
Oh my God.
So he knew this was not going to be good. He did see that the front door was partially open, but the store door was closed, like Miss Smith had said. After entering the home, Officer Davis immediately saw the body of an adult male lying beside the television. This was later determined to be Mr. Hollis Seal. He was the first adult that he had saw. He then turned the corner and he saw 3 more adult bodies beside a couch. All 4 adults were deceased. Now, those 3 bodies were the bodies of Cecil Dotson Sr., Marissa Williams, and Shindiri Robinson, which was Hollis Seal's girlfriend at the time. Officer Davis stated that he and 2 other officers began to start clearing the house, while one of the other officers secured the door. He describes that he then went to the bathroom because he had saw someone in the bathtub. When he went into the bathroom, he pulled back the shower curtain and found a male child, looked to have been around the age of 8 to 10. He was later identified as Cecil Dotson Jr., which we're going to call him CJ. Now, fair warning, guys, there's a lot of names to this, and a lot of people have a lot of the same names because they're named after their father. So I'm going to do the best I can with this.
Okay.
So this was Cecil Dotson Jr., and he's the 9-year-old, CJ. But they found him with a 4.5-inch sawzall blade sticking out of his head.
Oh.
Out of everything, I think the police described that was probably the most traumatic thing they've ever seen in their life, was a sawzall blade coming out of a child's head.
I can believe that.
Yes.
Oh.
But we're not done here, unfortunately. Officer Davis initially thought CJ was dead, but then he had noticed that his eyes were twitching. So he immediately called for help to get him help. Officer Davis continued to clear the house. He also then walked out of the bathroom into the hallway and into the bedroom that was located in the left side of the house, where he saw a small child who had already appeared to be deceased. I believe this was Cecil Dotson II, the 2-year-old of Miss Smith and Cecil Dotson. He then went into the next bedroom where he found Cedric and Samario Dotson. Cedric is 5 years old and Samario is 4 years old. Their bodies were lifeless. Meanwhile, another officer discovered an infant in the back room, and she appeared to have stab wounds to her as well, but she was alive. She was a 2-month-old.
Oh, wow.
It's bad. It's really bad.
That is bad. Yeah. A 2-month-old?
A 2-month-old. There was blood all over the walls and all through the house. It literally looked like a complete massacre in the place.
Yeah, well, it was.
It was confirmed that, unfortunately, Cecil Dotson II, he was deceased, and Samario Dotson, the 4-year-old, he was deceased. Aww. They were able to get 2-month-old Sanaya, 5-year-old Cedric, and 9-year-old CJ to the hospital. Now, when the police sent these kids to the hospital, they put them under a quarantine order, meaning that nobody could talk to them, nobody could visit them, not even family at this point, because they weren't for sure what had happened.
Right, that makes sense.
And they didn't want to chance anybody coming back to finish the job.
And threatening them or killing them, yeah.
Clearly they could see somebody was trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And they thought that they did. After they were able to get the surviving children out of the house and in an ambulance, the detectives started doing crime scene work. Cecil Dotson Sr. was bent over the couch. They could tell that these bodies were placed where they were. One of the main reasons being he had a baggie of marijuana in his hand at the time. Okay. Later, they determined that it was planted there because if he had that in his hand when he died, it would have came out of his hand.
So are they like trying to make it look like a drug deal gone
they were
wrong?
That's exactly what they were trying. They staged it.
But why would you use pot? I mean, why would you use weed?
Well,
that's just...
Well, they also found that Miss Robinson, which was Mr. Hollis's girlfriend, they found her on the floor with her pants pulled halfway down, and somebody had taken 5 crack rocks and put it around her vagina.
What the fuck?
The way that they were able to determine that that was staged as well is because all of the adult victims suffered gunshot wounds to their legs. Of course, they shot them all over the body, but they were all hit in the leg. Okay. And they could see that she had a hole in her pant leg from where they had pulled her pants down.
Oh,
you get what I'm saying?
Okay.
So they were so that she had her pants pulled up when
So if she had them down before she was shot, she wouldn't have had that. Okay.
Mr. Seal he was the one that was originally located near the TV. He had been shot in the back. The one with the most gunshot wounds was Cecil Dotson Sr. So you can kind of tell he was kind of the target here. And it was weird because there was 2 different shell casings that were found at the scene. So they automatically thought that it was more than one person that committed these crimes. They, strangely, when they were looking through everything, they found a little plastic baggie with empty shell casings in it, meaning that somebody was trying to pick up the crime scene, but they forgot their bag with them.
Okay, so they just spent a whole, shit ton of time going around picking up
all these old shell casings.
And then just left the whole fucking bag. Okay, that makes sense.
They also noticed that there was a 12-gauge shotgun located right beside the couch where Cecil Dotson Sr. was. And they determined that shotgun had never been shot before. So that's going to come back up, though, in a moment. They also found several different 2x4 blocks of wood that was used, and they were broken, but it was used to beat the children with.
What the fuck? What do you mean used to beat the children with?
Okay, so all the adults, they were shot. The kids were stabbed and beaten.
Oh my God.
That's how they died. Immediately, police, they don't know what's going on at this point. This is so random to them. Oh, and by the way, the shell casings that were found were 9mm and .308 shell casings. Just wanted to throw that out there. I forgot to do that.
This is enough to make a homicide detective go back to, giving out parking tickets.
If you ever watch the show, The First 48, you'll see there's a detective. This is his first homicide case that he took on.
Yeah.
And he could not, they even talked about it afterwards. None of them could sleep for days after this.
Well, he needs to go back to giving out parking tickets.
Yeah, it's kind of he wants to be back a beat cop, I guess.
Right.
Now, later on, the police were trying to investigate this. They have no lead. Like I said, they put the kids in the children's hospital in Memphis, and they put them on quarantine order. So immediately, they're trying to figure out what they can. They're really not coming up with anything. But a few hours after all of this happens, a teenage girl does come forward. I don't know her name. She didn't want her name to be put out there, I guess because she's a minor. She said that she was a family friend of Cecil and Marissa's. She said that she lived with the family on Leicester Street. However, she was staying at her mother's house the night that it happened.
Lucky her.
Yeah, for real. She dodged a bullet there, literally. She stated that before all of this had happened, she had overheard Cecil talking about he was going to rob someone. When they asked who, she said she wasn't sure. She also stated that Cecil and his brother, Jesse, which they also called him Junior, had robbed someone weeks prior to the murders. Now, this is just hearsay.
Yeah.
She's saying that what she heard. She had said that Cecil had also stolen some guns by a man that they known as Doc, which was short for Doc Holliday in the area.
That's a hell of a name.
You'd be surprised. A lot of people's names were Doc Holliday because they were looking for him. But we're going to get back to that. Of course, she claims she doesn't know Doc's real name. That's his street name. That's what everybody knows him as. They do a little background check on Cecil's brother, Jesse, and they discover that Jesse actually just got out of prison and just got done doing some time, and he was just recently paroled out. Jesse was sentenced to 18 years for second-degree murder back in 1994. He had taken a plea deal for the second-degree murder, and it was for the murder of a gentleman by the name of Hal Cox. According to Jesse, he and his friend Anthony Cole, also known in the neighborhood as Two Time, were walking towards Lauderdale Street when 43-year-old Hallie Cox approached them, allegedly trying to buy drugs from him. Jesse claimed that he told Cox that he didn't sell drugs, but also said his buddy, Two Time, didn't want to turn down the sale because he liked money. So, Two Time ended up telling Cox to follow them back to the Clearborn Apartments, which were the project. These housing projects were also some apartments that Jesse and his family lived in. Now, keep in mind, I forgot to mention this earlier. Jesse's older than Cecil, so he's the older brother.
Okay.
Apparently, he was a very troubled guy from the beginning. He was the
like
problem child. They ended up killing the guy just for a bad robbery, and Jesse took $20 off the guy's body after he shot him. kind of sounded premeditated to me. But anyways, he took a plea deal and did second-degree murder. In January of 2008, he was paroled out, but under stipulations, he had to live with Cecil and Jessie's sister, Nicole, which is the oldest sibling. That's who he was living with at the time. At this point, they were not adding Jessie into the equation. Only because, he had like a murder charge, back 15 years ago, but they weren't thinking that he had done that to his brother.
Well, they probably thought, he'd spent enough time in jail.
That's what I'm saying. So
he's trying to.
Yeah. And so he had just gotten out, and he was reporting to his parole officer,
Okay.
and he was working and everything, so they thought that,
He's trying to live right.
Yeah. Okay. So they asked Jessie to come in to interview him. And the reason why is because the young lady said before that she had mentioned that Cecil and Jessie had robbed somebody weeks prior to the murder. Jessie comes up to the headquarters, and Detective Max and Detective Stark interview him. They asked when he had last seen his brother. Jessie had told him that he had last seen him on late Saturday night, kind of early morning hours of Sunday, which was March 1st, March 2nd. Detectives asked Jessie if he knew anyone who would have wanted Cecil dead. Jessie said Cecil had told him about an incident with him and Doc, about some stolen gun.
So we're back to Doc Holliday.
We're back to old Doc. He also claimed that Cecil was in a gang called the Gangster Disciples, also known as the GDs, and that Cecil had been feuding with a fellow gang member, Doc, saying that him and Doc had some problems. I guess Doc was a GD too. They asked him if he and his brother had ever done anything to Doc, and Jessie said no, and that he's never even had a problem with Doc Holliday. Like, they don't even really know each other. He had also said that he didn't know Doc's real name either, so detectives had asked Jessie what happened between Cecil and Doc. He said that supposedly Cecil disrespected Doc. And this is something that he had heard from around town, that Cecil didn't tell him this, but supposedly that he had disrespected Doc, and that Cecil and Doc were both called to a meeting for the Gangster Disciples. Now, of course, this incident that they're talking about supposedly happened about 2 months prior to the murders. He said that Cecil kind of refused to go to the meeting that they were trying to hold for it.
I didn't think you could, reschedule that kind of shit.
You can't. That's what I'm saying.
I thought when your gang master or whatever called you in,
you
you
come.
had to go.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We're going to get to that too, because they end up interviewing somebody else that does kind of give them a little insight to the gang. Okay. But Jessie told them pretty much, hey, he doesn't know anything about the gang. He's not a gang member. But that was a lie, because it was determined that he actually was a gang member, but it was a different gang. He was part of the Kitchen Crips, which is a branch in the penitentiary.
Kitchen Crips?
Kitchen Crips. Okay. I know. I'm thinking, I wonder if they cook good or something.
Yeah. I mean, do they work, in the prison kitchen? I mean, that's...
The Kitchen Crips.
I don't know. I'm going to join the Kitchen Crips.
Anyways, they let Jessie go because he claims he didn't really know much. They just wanted to get a little information from him, so they let him go, no problem. But the police kind of thought, they've seen a lot of gang killings where this is. Memphis there's a lot of gangs there.
Yeah.
And they even agreed that this is a little overkill for a GD killing.
Yeah, because usually they don't kill children.
They don't, and that's exactly what they say. Yeah. They usually don't. That's usually kind of like a mafia type thing, it seems like. But
I don't even think they do it. I don't think any organized crime really just kills children.
And that's what they said. Police said they could see if it was just Cecil had just been shot, but the women and the kids.
Yeah, or if they just fired into the house not knowing what was in there, and they shot the kids. But these kids had been beaten and stabbed.
Exactly.
So that just doesn't seem like a gang thing.
It's personal to me. When you stab somebody and you beat them, it's kind of personal to me.
Yeah, it takes a lot of effort. A lot of energy.
Yeah, it does. So anyways, they got Doc Holliday on their radar now. You know what I mean? Because it kind of sounds like, okay, they heard from Jessie, and they heard from this girl.
Have they identified this guy, Doc Holliday?
No,
they know who he is. Does he even exist?
He does. Okay. So they searched the database, and it turns out there's 30 men with the nickname of Doc Holliday in the database system.
What the hell? Why have I never met one of these Doc Hollidays?
So they end up going through all of this.
If I get another dog, I'm going to name him Doc Holliday.
I'm a Doc Holliday fan. I like Tombstone. He was a real person.
Oh, was that... So Tombstone. That was from that movie? Okay, so...
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen Tombstone, or it's been a while, so that's where Doc Holliday comes from?
Well, Doc Holliday was a real person. He was...
Oh!
Yeah. He's Wyatt Earp's best friend, and he's like the fastest... The reason why people use that name is because he was the fastest gun in the West.
This explains so much. Like, I was just imagining, like, a 1920s band leader. Like a jazz band, like Doc Holliday. I mean, I didn't know that. Okay, I'll have to go back and watch Tombstone.
Yes, it's a great movie.
Okay,
but yeah,
so I was wondering, like, what was up with this name, but it was so cool.
Doc Holliday is Val Kilmer's character in Tombstone. It's have you ever seen Tombstone?
I mean, I'm thinking that I have, but it's been a long time, or maybe I didn't.
That's Dad's favorite movie.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so I think maybe that's where I've seen it. I've seen like him watch it.
Yeah.
But maybe I never watched it with him and took it in. Okay.
Yeah.
I will definitely have to do that. So we're getting off topic. Like,
yeah, sorry about that, guys. But yeah, Doc Holliday, he was a real person. He was a badass on the gun. That's
okay, so apparently there are like 60 real people named Doc Holliday now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they go by that name.
But I'm so naming my dog that.
You already named one of your dogs Sergeant Pepper.
Yeah.
So anyway, back on track here. So of course they go looking in the database. In the meantime, so they have to go through all of these guys to see if they fit the description of this Doc Holliday that's, that everybody's telling them about. Well, in the meantime, they do get notice from the hospital that the 3 children, they are going to make it. They're going to survive.
Oh, yeah.
However, they were in critical condition.
Yeah.
Like I said, CJ, the 9-year-old, he suffered the worst from it. He suffered from a stab wound to the right side of his head, which was the sawzall. He had so many defensive wounds on his hands where he was trying to protect himself. Yeah. They had to do a lot of work on him. Sanaya, she ended up being okay. But Detective Mason and Detective Stark, they go and they try to interview CJ at the hospital at this point. They had already got CJ in stable condition by the time they had went down there. They were unable to get any answers from him because the only thing he could really tell them was he remembered his parents being in the living room with their friends. He said that he heard a knock on the front door, and when they asked, okay, do you know who answered the door? He was just like, my mama answered the door. That's what I remember. He said that he also remembers looking out of his bedroom and seeing all the adults standing up, and it was just like a big fight. At that time, he said that he heard gunshots. But when they started asking him more further questions, it's like he was reliving it. So his machine started like going off the radar. Like his heart was beating so fast.
Aww.
And he started crying and hyperventilating that he couldn't get anything out.
Oh my God.
And so, of course, they did not try to press it any further.
Yeah.
They determined that they were just going to let him recover a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then they'd come back. At that point, he was under a lot of, he was on a lot of pain medication. At that time, they had first initially tried to interview him. I don't think he could really recollect just yet because it was just so traumatic.
Yeah.
The next day, Homicide gets a call from Doc Holliday. So,
hello.
He found them first before they found him.
Sir, this is Doc Holliday.
So, at the time, he was
looking for me.
At the time, it was I forgot to mention this, it was Lieutenant Armstrong that was over this whole case. Doc Holliday called Lieutenant Armstrong, and he was just like, hey, he's like, you looking for me? And he was like, yeah, you want to come talk to me? He's like, yeah, I'll come talk to you. I'm on my way. So they're like, all right, we got him coming here. This might be the one. So they get Doc there, and they ask him if he's in a gang.
What's up, Doc?
What's up, Doc? They ask him if he's in a gang, and he's like, no, I ain't in a gang. And they're like, oh, okay, sure you ain't. And he also said that he and Cecil had no issues. Like, he doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. They had no issues whatsoever. Of course, Lieutenant Armstrong was just like, dude, I don't believe you. And then he's like, I really didn't have any issues with them. Long story short, they let him go. They don't have anything on him. He said he hasn't seen Cecil. And
did they ask him to take a polygraph?
No. Not that I know of. Not that I saw. Now, a lot of what I'm getting from when it comes to this is I got a lot of this from the first 48. A lot of the stuff that I have added in there I have gotten from my own research, from researching things. But as far as I know, he didn't do a polygraph or anything like that. Now, of course, on shows like that, they don't show everything. So the police, they're kind of seeing this go cold, and they don't want it to go cold because... Come on, there was just 2 children killed.
Oh,
in this whole thing. So they're just like, we're not letting this go. We got to keep going. So they put out an offer for a $30,000 reward for any tip that leads them to the perpetrator. So, of course, naturally, everybody's calling
Everybody
in
and
now.
their mama's calling in.
Everybody's calling in now. And they said that the phones
I think
are
my
blowing
boyfriend did it.
Yeah, but like, I think my old man did it. He wasn't home that night. They were getting tons of calls and tips, and none of them led anywhere. Police then got a tip from a person that said that he knew Cecil very well. So they were just like, yeah, come on in. So they get the guy there, and the guy's like, yeah, Cecil told me that he was involved in the mafia and that he owed them $300,000 and that he said he wasn't going to pay it. So they started looking for him. So basically, he's sitting over here telling them this story, and the police are just like, dude, this doesn't even sound real. Like, you're saying that he got $300,000 from the mafia.
Yeah.
And they just fronted it to him, and he's just not going to give it back. They were like, dude, we're cops. We know if he was really, like, bringing in that type of money.
It's probably
like,
a movie plot. He probably watched, like a
So they're just like, no, yeah,
Goodfellas
dude.
or something.
And then the guy was just like, I only met him once, but he told me this. And they were just like, dude, you told us that he was a friend of yours. He was like, no, I only met him once. And they're just like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something. That's a conversation somebody has with someone they just met.
Yeah, they just met. I would totally tell everybody.
Or like to go out and meet new people and tell them how
much I owe the mafia money.
How much I owe the mafia. Yeah.
So, of course, they determined it wasn't credible. They begin digging more, and they're just not finding anything. They have no suspects. The only person that they thought they were onto was Mr. Doc Holliday, and they couldn't get anything out of him.
They get nothing on my boy Doc.
Nothing on Doc.
Nothing on Doc.
So what the police decide to do, since they don't have anybody that's really a main perpetrator on this, they call in a guy from the streets that they know he knows a lot about the gangster disciples. So they think that their best bet is to get somebody that knows a lot about the gang to come in and tell them about it. Because at this point, they're thinking this probably is gang related. Because they're not thinking about other people.
Because that's all they have, you know.
Yeah, that's all they do. Yeah.
That's
and that's how the perpetrator set it up to be. They set it up to look like it was some kind of gang-related thing. So they bring this guy in, and they ask him what happens when two gang members get into it. And the guy was just like, well, they get rode up. And he was just like, okay, so what happens when they get rode up? He said, when they get rode up, you have to go to trial. And they're just like, okay, so what happens after the trial? He's like, well, it's kind of like how y'all do. If the person's found guilty, they get a DV. And the cops are like, well, what is DV? And he's like, it's a death violation. Then they started asking him, well, the DV, does that mean that they have to kill him and his whole family? And they were just like, no, they just killed the guy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's telling them this. And
this is not a club I would want to be in.
He was just like, no, they just killed the actual gang member. He was just like, but the gangster disciples, they have been known to kill a whole family. They call this a blackout. And they're just like, oh, a blackout? And they were just like, how do you get a blackout called? He was just like, you have to go to a really high ranking to get a blackout call. And they were just like, okay, so did Doc call a blackout for Cecil and his family? And they were just like, nah. He was like, Doc is not even high enough rank to have something like that called. And then he was just like, you have to do something really, really bad in order for them to call a blackout.
Okay, so you gotta be like Gotti.
Yes.
To call this shit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So he was just like, I really don't think there's nobody in this town that can make that call. Pretty much. That's what he was saying.
Oh.
So at this point, they're just like, Doc's not really... He couldn't have called
my boy
that.
Doc is not as high up on the ladder as...
Oh, your boy Doc's high, but not as high as, Larry Hoover or something. He's the one that actually started the gang.
Larry Hoover. Got it.
Up in Chicago, so... After all of this is going on, police get a call from Cecil and Jesse's oldest sister, Nicole. She calls them, like, freaking out because she feels like somebody is hunting her entire family.
Well, yeah.
She said that she's been hearing that a lot of people were looking for the rest of Cecil's family. And so she and her family, they moved from her apartment to another family member's house. So she got the hell out of her apartment and moved somewhere else.
Okay.
So she
Can't blame her there.
However, after she moved, someone called her from her empty apartment on her cell phone. And she has no clue who would have been calling her. and it freaked her out. So she immediately got in contact with the police and went down there. They went over there. They found no signs of forced entry in Nicole's apartment or anything. So at this point, they put the whole family in protective custody. Cecil's mom, Nicole, her kids, Jessie, everybody went into protective custody. They put them in something called a safe house.
Okay.
So they finally get word that CJ is recovering well and he's more coherent. Detectives Mason and Detective Stark, they go back down there and they interview him again. And they go and they talk to him. And of course, they're recording this on a tape player. And they ask him what he recalled from that night. And of course, he told them about, his mama entering the door. And then he said that the man came in and he stabbed me in my chest. And that's the last thing that I remember. Because I forgot to mention, he did have a stab wound to his chest. It just didn't puncture.
Deep enough? Okay.
Yes. And then they asked him who did it. And he was just like, Junior.
Oh.
So they're like, whoa.
Oh my God.
They're just like, oh my God, we got this guy in the safe house with the rest of them. We got to go get him. Like, we got to go get him out now. Detective Mason and Detective Stark, they go to Lieutenant Armstrong and they're just like, yo, this is what's going on. We got to go pick him up. Now, they don't talk about this on the episode of the first 48, but I researched it. When he got word that they were coming for him, he had threatened to kill himself right then and there, and he was going to take everybody in the safe house hostage. They did not talk about that on First 48. I don't know why, but he flipped a lid. And when he did it, his mom was just like, what the hell is going on with you? He's like, I know they're going to try to pin it on me because I already went to jail for murder before. I know that's what they're going to try to do. So anyways, they end up getting him to come down there. They asked this motherfucker, what is the most important thing to him? And he says, my family, man. My family's the most important thing to me.
Like all two that are left or whatever?
Yeah, and they're just like, really? Your family's important to you? Lieutenant Armstrong gets to asking him all this stuff, and he was just like, he's trying to get him to crack. He's not cracking. So he brings in the tape player. All he plays is CJ saying, Junior, Junior, Junior.
Oh.
And he was just like, why is that little boy saying your name? And then he was just like, I did it.
Holy shit.
He literally, he's got to be the most darkest human being I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
So they ask him, what happened? What led you to want to do this?
Yeah, I think that's the question on everybody's mind.
He said him and Cecil had been out riding around, and they started arguing. They argued the whole way to the house. They had got out, and they went in the house, and Jessie said Cecil was still popping off at the mouth. He claims that he saw Cecil grab that 12-gauge shotgun that was beside the couch. He said he saw him grab it from behind the couch, and he said all he remembers is he just started shooting. And then he was just like, the kids, dude, why did you stab the kids?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
And all he said was, they saw me. Lieutenant Armstrong then asked him, how did you try to get rid of him? He said, I stuck him.
Okay.
It's horrific. It's tough. This shit's tough.
Yeah.
He had asked him where he had gotten the knives from, and he said he got them from the kitchen drawer. He pretty much told him that they weren't dying, so he took the boards and he started beating them.
Oh my God.
And then finally, he thought they were all dead before he left, but CJ was still alive.
This is just...
Yeah, I should have put a double...
Okay, so what I don't get about it is, okay, so the kids saw... What about that little 2-month-old? Like, who was that 2-month-old going to tell?
Exactly.
I mean, he could have just dropped that baby off on somebody's doorstep. I mean, none of it was necessary, but especially... I just don't see how you can...
You don't have words for it.
How can you do this? And how can you do this to all of those kids?
And here's the thing. This is your blood.
Right.
This is your blood.
I mean, blood or not, I mean,
exactly.
They're children.
They're defenseless. One of them's a fucking baby that was just born.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand why any of those children had to die. But, especially someone that couldn't even tell on you.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense. He's definitely got a dark soul.
Absolutely, he does.
If he has soul at all. I don't even think this man has a soul. Because I don't see how you can do that many times. If you did it to one child, I don't see how you could continue to do it to the rest of them. It's just...
Of course, they charge him with 6 first-degree murder charges and 3 attempted murder charges. 2010, he goes to trial. At trial, he shows no emotion. By this
Of course
time,
not. He's a fucking psychopath.
By this time, he recanted his confession. He claimed he didn't do it. Of course. He claims that he was at the house whenever the murders happened. He heard somebody come through the door and start shooting. So he went and ran underneath the bed and
like
stayed
didn't
there.
tell anybody.
And didn't tell anybody.
Okay.
While
that
he
makes a
was
lot of
on
sense.
and you can also see his cross-examination on YouTube. So they ask him, why didn't you call the police? He's like, because where I come from, we don't call the police. He was just like, not even if your niece is back there bleeding and dying. No.
Yeah.
Not even if your 9-year-old nephew's got a blade sticking out of his head and he's dying. No. You know, he's sitting there saying he didn't do any of this. It turns out Jesse did not go to his sister's house after this happened, where he was living. He went to his girlfriend's house, which her name is Sheila Jones. She's an older woman. I'm not really for sure where she lived, but the night that he killed his brother and his brother's wife and
the
all
whole
his
family,
he stole his nephew's bike and drove all the way to her house. They found CJ's bike in Sheila's shed.
And CJ's a 9-year-old,
Mhm.
so he took off on a 9-year-old's bike.
Yes, he did.
What a bitch.
He is a bitch. And he claims that he had nothing to do with it, that he just saw them. Now, this is literally what happened. He went to Sheila's house. Jesse works with their father, Jesse Sr., Jesse Dotson Sr. He's a painter.
Okay.
So he had been working with him as when he got out on parole. So he didn't show up for work.
Okay.
And Jesse Sr. got a hold of Nicole, and Nicole was like, I haven't seen him. He was just like, well, you need to tell your brother to call me or else he's not going to have a job. Jesse ended up calling him later that night and telling him that he and Sheila had just gotten into an argument and she hit his phone and that he'd be at work the next day. That same night, he went out to dinner with his brother, their oldest brother, Mr. Waddell.
Okay.
So he ate dinner with his brother, knowing that all those people were over there rotting.
His other brother and his nieces and nephews.
Also, this happened late hours, March 1st, early hours, March 2nd. So those children were laying in that house for 30-something hours.
Dear God.
The bodies were already starting to smell when they got there.
Yeah.
It was
I am just surprised that those children survived just dehydration. I mean, much less their actual wounds. But I mean, I'm just surprised that they didn't dehydrate.
I later found a interview that CJ had did with another guy. He does like a radio podcast in Memphis, and I didn't write down the name. I'm really sorry. I'll try to find it and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
But CJ, he had done this back in 2017. So at this point, CJ was 19 or 18 at the time. He recalls what he had been doing that day. He said that he was in the bedroom because his TV was broken. Like, he remembers that he saw him shoot his dad, and he saw all of them dead on the couch and wherever they were. He said that Jesse saw him peek out, and then he ran back in. Jesse grabbed a knife and went to him, and he said all he had was just a blank look on his face. And CJ begged for his life, and he said that he showed no emotion the whole time he was stabbing him.
Oh.
I know.
I mean,
but definitely, I don't want to talk anymore about it because it actually is kind of making my stomach hurt a little bit.
It is hard to talk about. This is a tough one.
And yeah,
but God, you know what those kids went through, and those people, the 2 people that did not live there, that were just there. It's like wrong place, wrong time.
Exactly.
Just hanging out.
Yes.
And this happened to them.
Yes.
Jesus.
And I don't know too much background on Hollis Seal or Shandiri Robinson, but God rest their soul, because like you said, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were really just over there to kick
That's why I don't go out to anybody's house. I don't go over anybody's house.
I don't either. I just go to your house.
Yeah.
It's just, you never know what could happen. That's that's terrible that even happened. Nicole, his sister, said that Jesse just really hasn't been the same since he did time. He felt so much animosity to his mom and to his family for not sticking by him while he was locked up. And the way that she kind of explained it was we had to move on with our lives. You were stuck in one place.
What was he expecting everybody to do?
I don't know, but I guess he felt like they should have kept in touch with him more. And
maybe you shouldn't have landed your ass in there.
But literally, this guy is so fucked up in the head. Look, just put in Jessie Dotson on YouTube. You'll see what I'm talking about. Still, at one point, he was still talking to the news. Which, by the way, hold on. Let me revert back before I say this. Jesse was found guilty, of course, and he was convicted. He got 6 death penalty sentences. And he got an extra 120 years for...
Too bad I can only kill him once.
I know, right? That is crazy how they give you like 6 death sentences. Yeah. But I think they did that just to make sure he wasn't going to appeal nothing.
Yeah, because I guess if they find some sort of technicality or something later...
They wanted to make sure they hammered him. And that's why they gave him 120 years for the attempted murder of CJ, Sanaya, and Samario.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what they ended up giving him. He was fine with it. Honestly, to the point...
He was fine with it?
He had to be, because the day that they...
Did they ask? I mean, the
last day of the trial when they found him guilty, he refused to dress out of his jail uniform because he already said that he already knew he was guilty. He wasn't going to get anything, so he literally refused to put his court suit on.
Okay, well, at least,
And so after he's sentenced, the news station does an interview with him, and he literally has the audacity to say he forgives his mama.
For what?
She testified against him.
Fuck,
everybody testified against him. He was just like, you know what? I was kind of mad at my mama, but I forgive her. He's like, I didn't even do anything. She ends up replying back to that on another interview, and she's just like, he's so fucked up in the head, he don't even know which way is what, and she was like, she said, I do not care if he forgives me. I don't. She was like, he killed my grandchildren,
nobody gives a fuck about his forgiveness or his opinion or...
Well, Jesse got married in there. Somebody married him.
Of course he did. Of course, women came out of the woodwork to get with this guy, I'm sure.
Yes. So he's a married man. He's sitting on death row at River Bend Maximum Security Prison in Nashville. So
to that I say, huzzah.
Yes. I don't usually say this about too many people, but I hope he's next on the list. I really do.
Oh, no. I mean, a death penalty is pretty much like a life sentence. I mean,
the state of Tennessee started picking up on it lately.
Yeah, but they have so many appeals. And I mean, unless somebody says, I don't want to do any, I'm giving up on all my appeals, I just want to die, which has happened a couple times, it gets drawn out for a really long time. I mean, it's close to a life sentence. A lot of people have died of natural causes before they're actually executed. And I'm not going to give an opinion on the death penalty. It's not going to hurt my feelings when this guy... And isn't there a hold right now on...
No, they released that.
Did they release it? There was one, though.
They released that in 2018. There was a hold on it for years.
Because of one of the lethal injection drugs. They said that...
They said it was inhumane.
Okay.
And
so they come up with a better formula.
I think we've talked about it, and I know maybe we've mentioned it briefly. I'm kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out when it comes to the death penalty.
I mean, and I'll tell you my dentist do it.
Just let my dentist do it.
I mean, you'll never feel anything again on one side of your face.
What made me change my outlook, and I'm gonna wrap it up after this because the case is over now. Guys, I've been doing research on this case for so long, and it's just been hard for me to get out, and I just finally got it over with and got it out.
Yeah, but this was going to be one of our first, but it was a lot.
It was just too much for it to be our first, and I knew that I'd probably literally my face is hot right now talking about it.
So we made our first episode about preachers and snakes.
Yeah, it's something that we could joke about.
Yeah. So there wasn't much we could joke about.
Yeah, there's not much to joke about in this situation, and the reason why I kind of changed my mind on the death penalty was because of
this motherfucker.
No, well, that too. Damien Eccles, he was...
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's something that would have to be absolutely 100%.
Yes.
And,
I think they had way too many supporting documents to know it was him. For one, he confessed to it. Yeah. And it made nothing but sense. And not only that, there was an eyewitness to it.
But like I said before, you can only kill that person once. I mean... this person could have killed 50 people. You can only kill them one time. And the brutal manner in which a lot of these people kill their victims, you can't reproduce that with them. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So you're not really getting full vindication.
It's supposed to
from
be
that.
the old Bible saying
Like a life
eye for an eye.
eye for an eye, a life,
And you
a
really
life for a life. And I mean, I understand that, but
And I personally, I think it's really weird. Like, and I know we brought this up before.
oh yeah,
It's
people
really weird that people go to these like rallies whenever a death is happening, like Ted Bundy.
I do think that's
and-
weird. I do think that's like really weird. Yeah, for you to like be having a party because somebody is about to die, like you need to look at yourself at that point. Like, why are you rejoicing that somebody is getting killed? I mean, and I understand that, when these things happen, a lot of emotions run high in the community, and,
a lot of people are hurt by it.
but I
get
mean,
it.
I mean, and I'm not going to say because I've never actually been in that position myself, and I hope I never am. I'm not going to tell these victims' families how they need to feel. So, I mean, I completely get it if they feel that way. But, I mean, just perfect strangers, no. I'm sorry, I don't. Like,
No, that's what I mean. Like, if it's something that personally happened to your family, then yeah, be there for it.
yeah, I mean, you have the right to feel how you feel. But, I mean, if you didn't even know anybody involved, I mean, naturally, these cases affect everybody.
This case really affected me. It did.
Yeah, I mean, it affects me too. I mean, yeah, it makes me angry and sad, and like I said, my feelings aren't going to be hurt when this guy is executed, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to
go up there with my t-shirt.
Yeah, like we're not going to go selling t-shirts and grilling out, and yeah. So I
Although-
do find that weird.
Although, I will say, I will not shed a tear when they do kill him.
Oh, no, I won't either.
But anyways, that is the story of the Leicester Street case. And sorry, guys, I really tried not to throw... I mean, there was a lot of names involved in it and a lot of the same names. So I did the best I could. And I hope I was able to get the story out there. I really didn't want to
I love you, Doc Holliday. Will you marry me?
Mr. Doc Holliday, we're only 3 hours away.
God,
My sister
if
thinks
this
you're
guy
cool.
shows up, I swear to God.
My sister thinks you're cool, man.
I do. I think you're so cool. I want to be the next Mrs. Doc Holliday.
Just go home and watch Tombstone so you'll know what the hell it means.
I'm going to divorce my husband for you, Doc Holliday. Anyway. All right. So we done?
Yeah, I think we are.
We're out. All right. Hit us up on Facebook at
www.facebook.com/TC
Check us out on Instagram
at TC_DownYonder
and Twitter
at Downcrime.
at Downcrime, or send us an email at tcdownyonder@gmail.com.
Yeah, you remembered one of
Yeah.
our social media.
Give us your case suggestions. Let us know what you think. Any updates on cases that you may have heard or any additional information you can provide. We always like to hear from you.
I love doing Tennessee cases. I don't know why. I just love doing those. Also, guys, please give us a 5-star rating on any
Apple
platform.
Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts or any platform that allows you to do it. So just please write us a review. Tell us, what you think. We're here for it, okay? So we appreciate you. We appreciate the people that are listening to us. And until next time, bye y'all.